what someone else is going through until you walk a mile in their shoes. This is a common cliche you've all probably heard and dismissed as just another stupid piece of advice given by adults trying to tell you what to do with your life. I used to think this too, but as I've gotten older, I understand the meaning behind it. I understand that you never know what goes on behind closed doors. I understand that you should never judge a book by its cover. I understand that you have to run that mile, open that door, and read that book to discover the truth. In order to accomplish this, we are going to look at the mystery that is smiling depression, the science behind this oxymoron, and society's perception of it. Smiling depression. It seems like an oxymoron, doesn't it? How can someone smile when they're depressed? In the words of Rita Labune, clinical psychologist, smiling depression is appearing happy to others, literally smiling, while internally suffering with depressive symptoms. This is why smiling depression is more dangerous than clinical depression. People with smiling depression have the energy to go through their day, and they can use that energy to carry through a plan for suicide. And without the training or the knowledge of what to look for, how can anyone predict these plans? Unless that person tries to find help for themselves, you can't tell something is wrong. I have many friends in this school who don't seem like they're depressed on the outside, but have suffered in silence for so long, they don't know how to cope anymore. All of these people are kind, fun-loving people who live seemingly perfect lives, but they go through every day in agony. The problem is that people either don't care or don't know what they're looking for. Part of the reason people don't know what they're looking for is because they don't understand. This is why mental health education is so important. According to Timothy Legg, a licensed psychologist, a healthy brain is chemically different from a depressed brain. Research has shown that a depressed brain has higher amounts of cortisol, which is a hormone that the body produces during times of mental and physical stress. Excessive amounts of cortisol can mess with the production of new neurons, which affects memory. It also enlarges the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that controls emotional responses. This causes a disturbance in the rest of the body's chemistry. Getting away from society's perception, getting away from the boring medical side of depression, we're going to look at society's perception of it. There are many misconceptions that are widely accepted by the general public, but are far from the truth. I obviously don't have time to talk about all of them, so I chose 3 big ones that I hear more often than others. The first is that depression and sadness are the same. According to Tracy Smith, a licensed professional counselor, the main difference between depression and sadness is the amount of time it lasts. Sadness will resolve itself after a few days or a couple weeks. Depression sticks to you. And can last for months and even years. To give you an example, I myself was diagnosed with depression freshman year, and I am still struggling with it today. Another huge misconception is that depression is only caused by a traumatic event. Depression is caused by large amounts of continuous stress. This stress can be caused by trauma, but it also includes school, family, work, and everything else that goes on in our fast-paced 21st century lifestyle. The final, most important misconception is that it's one of the most important to me. The belief that someone with depression can just snap out of it. Depression is a continuous struggle. Every hour, every minute, every second of each day. This can be a hard concept for people to wrap their heads around, which causes added stress to those with depression. Throughout this speech, I have given you a few personal examples. But I want to end this on something the entire senior class can relate to. We were all affected by the suicide of Chase Jennison. Everything in this speech has been so disconnected from most of you, you probably wouldn't remember it without connecting this to Chase. And as someone who didn't know him very well, I can't make any assumptions about what went on in his head. But I know how my heart stopped when I answered that call. How it didn't seem possible that someone I had seen that day would suddenly be gone. How quiet school was the next day. I remember looking at his desk in AP history and thinking that space would never be the same to me. This is why depression should be important to you. You should want to stop this from happening to anyone else in your life. This is why I've talked about smiling depression and why it's so dangerous. Why I've tried to explain the science behind it to make it seem more real. And why I want to change society's perception of depression and mental illness as a whole. I hope that today I have taken you on the journey of running that mile, opening that door, and reading that book to understand why we should all look behind the smile.